Hey guys, we have a special something for you today, planned by Michelle. So let's see what we got. Okay, Michelle, we're ready.
Okay, so I'm setting up a tank for Mom's room, right there. I love fish tanks, tanks with live plants and really pretty fish and all stuff like that. Before I moved out here, I had 12, so I'm kind of itching to get tanks again. I ordered most of the supplies are here already. The plants and the hardscape, which is like the wood and the rocks and stuff, hasn't come yet. But this is most of it.
We're gonna cut all these boxes open and we'll be right back. Again.
Yep.
Alrighty guys, we're back. We got everything cut open, so we're gonna open them up, see what Michelle got here.
Yep. So the first box, this is all of this stuff that we have right now is from Amazon. I have more stuff coming from other websites. So this is just a filter for one of my own tanks. I needed one. This is Nylock G, which is a really good aquarium fertilizer, so it's safe for the fish. It won't make them sick or anything, but it's really good for plants. This.
Grow your own fish?
Hmm?
Is that a grow your own fish?
So this is Fritzyme. It's a nitrifying bacteria. When you have a filter in your tank, it's not actually filtering out particles mostly. It's actually just, it has bacteria in it. And just like there's good bacteria in your mouth, there's good bacteria that grows in the filter that removes all the stuff that's toxic. So this is the bacteria in a bottle, so when you add it to your tank, it's safer for the fish faster.
Okay. Gotcha.
Most of the box, what is this? Okay, this is also for me. This is just a black, fish safe spray paint. Good for aquarium background, but you won't need that for your tank. This is the heater. This goes in the back of the tank, keeps the water warm. It's just a metal rod that heats up. You can change the temperature on it. Fluval's a really good brand. All their stuff's really high quality, but it's kind of expensive. I like Fluval though, is why I bought
This video was not sponsored, by the way. Michelle paid for all of this with her own money.
Yes, I paid for it with my own money. Fluval ain't sponsoring us.
Well, can we say, well, we don't know where the money came from, but we never did find out where that $1,000 came from.
And then I've got organic potting mix, which seems really weird for a fish tank, but we're doing a dirted tank, which is when you have a layer of dirt underneath the layer of sand or gravel, and it helps the plants grow better. Just like plants will grow better in potting mix and they will grow in plain gravel like normal plants, so do aquatic plants. It's got to be organic though, because the pesticides will kill fish. And then all that's left until the gravel and the rocks and the plants and stuff come is the actual tank.
You could cut that box off of there. I don't know what you did with the knife, but...
So in addition to the Fluval heater, we got a Fluval tank. My favorite Fluval tank, which is the Flex.
You almost cut your hand.
It's a tough box.
Yeah, but I don't want to spend my day at the yard.
It's not super crazy heavy, but it's too bulky for me to lift up easily inside the box. That's the box. Normally this is what you see in the store. The Fluval is an all-in-one tank. which means most tanks have the tank and the filter you put on the back or inside of the tank. This tank actually has the filter as part of it. Make it tough to get out.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh my god. Rinse it under tap. You can see there's black coming off. So if you use like a charcoal mask or anything like that, this is the same thing. I guess you guys are into the charcoal.
Well, charcoal mask is a little easier to apply to the face than that.
No one laughs at my jokes, Mom.
We didn't see that. I've seen it, but no, they did not see it.
It's pretty easy to me.
Mask Mondays tomorrow, Michelle.
Oh no. It's a little dusty.
We're gonna glue all those little pieces of charcoal to your face.
I don't use carbon on most of my tanks because you need to replace it every month. But when you first set up a tank, it's nice. And there's really no point in it most of the time. But it's cool because after you rinse it, you can hear it fizz. It sounds like Pop Rocks. Head on over back here.
We're going to do the inner corner.
Back, stick this into this top hole in the sponge. Stick the ceramic media into the bottom hole. And then the ceramic media doesn't like me. It's really bulky. I prefer the smaller ones because you can compress them a little more. There we go. That goes back there. And it has this handy dandy little handle to pull it on out if you need to work on the filter. I'm gonna run over here for a second. And I'm back. The return pump has suction cups on the bottom. Tube's already pretty well attached, so you're not worried about that. I'm gonna do it like this. This guy is what makes the tank run. Without it, you wouldn't have a filter. Jeez.
You trying to break it?
Yes. Oh, I guess that has to go the other way. I didn't realize it's pointed a, I knew it pointed a certain direction, but I wasn't thinking about it. Put that guy down the back. Okay, so it has a little tube, it lines up with the back, the little hole.
Does it just pop in or does it screw?
It screws. So the little elbow has
Threads on it.
Yep. Go. And again, you can adjust it to point up and pull it off on accident. Yeah. So, I think that's all we have for now that I can think of. We still need to sift the dirt. And then wait for the gravel to get in and rinse the gravel and all that. But
Okay, we'll see you guys in a little bit.
bye. Okay. I good?
Yep. Don't rip the, if you rip the box though, and we have to send it back for some reason. So,
You're gonna be hard on me, Mom. I'll use the scissors.
I'm not trying to make it hard on you. I'm just trying to say that you might not want to break that box yet. Turn it over onto its side and then onto the top. And slide it out. Sorry, my room is such a mess, guys.
I just made it a mess. Okay. The lid comes wrapped in plastic. The light's built in. There's a chance later on I might replace this with stronger lighting. It depends on how the plants I ordered do. This is it's called a leveling mat. It goes underneath the tank, and so if there's any imperfections in the dresser, it'll absorb them.
there are that dresser bows.
Yeah. It'll absorb those and keep it from damaging the tank later on.
That's what happens with the cheap self-built dressers.
Yep. And you can see from the side angle how there's this curve. As far as I'm aware, this is the only tank with a curve like that. Most of them go the other way, or they curve out. I don't know how to explain it. But then this in the back is the filter. All this is filter space, so you can have a lot more fish for the size tank it is. It lets you customize the filtration, which most new people won't be doing, but I might. On this side is the overflow, so the water, if the water gets past the grate, it'll flow down, and it goes through to the other side, where in here, we're going to find our, need the scissors again, great. More scissors. Okay.
Oh,
Jesus. It's all good.
scared me.
So this is it's called a return pump. It's really big. But this goes in this compartment. This bit screws in through this little hole, and this attaches to the end. And so what it'll do is it pushes water from this compartment out into the tank, which makes it fill, and then it overflows, and then it goes back through. So that's how it cycles through. It also means that the level will always stay the same in the display tank, which is the display is this area, because the water level will only go down in here, because that's where the water is leaving. That's where the water level goes down. It has those.
There's something wrapped in plastic in the back there.
Yes, that's the filter media. I'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
These are called duckbill nozzles. They have lock line plumbing on them, which is just this type of plastic interlocking thing. It lets you angle the water so you can make it flow up to hit the surface and get more oxygen into the water. Or you can angle it down. Oh, I broke it off. Come off.
Popped it off.
Yeah.
Broke and popped are two different things.
Or you can point it down where it's going to stir up the stuff at the bottom of the tank.
When are my fish going to get here?
I haven't ordered them yet. We're gonna get it all set up. Once the plants come in and everything's set up, I'll probably.
It has to be set up for a few days, doesn't it?
Usually they recommend at least a week. I'm gonna test it, and then if it's ready sooner, I'll probably pop one of my fish into your tank just for the time being, so you have something in it. It's not just an empty tank.
Her beta had babies, guys.
Oh yeah, I got 11 of them. Official count is 11. They look like little tiny tadpoles.
How many were there to begin with, though? A lot.
40.
Like 40.
But
yeah.
Most of that 40 died within the first couple of days. Is when they're the most sensitive.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are doing really, really well. So this is my favorite part about this tank.
The remote.
The remote. So we're gonna have this tank on a timer.
How long has it been since I had fish?
Since I was a little kid.
No, remember we used to have that one on the kitchen table?
Oh yeah, that was my tank. I took care of that.
No, you didn't.
I don't remember you ever.
I was constantly cleaning that thing out.
I don't remember you ever doing that. Okay, and I'm just plugging it in to show. what it does. Is there a plug somewhere?
Over there by the closet door.
Will it reach? It will definitely not. We won't reach it.
Well, you gotta move the thing onto the dresser anyway, right?
Yeah, well, I need to rinse it first. I'll just show everything, and I'll rinse it, and then I'll show you. Actually, I can't think today. And this is a 15-gallon tank, by the way. Oh, it fits great.
Good. I thought maybe I was gonna have to lower that shelf, but I don't have to.
You can raise it.
No. I didn't want it to be too high, but it's not because it's got that crown hanging from it.
Okay, the main complaint I see about these lids is that they don't have a hinge. So when you want to do anything on the tank, you have to take the whole thing off.
Even to feed them?
No, there's a feeding hole. But like if you want to trim the plants or do a water change or something. There's a hole for the cord in the back. I'll bring up an extension cord. Okay, so that's night mode. So here's the remote. Hold on, there we go.
Ooh.
So you
Nice.
can change the colors. I don't know what that button does. Oh, here we go. Turn it on and off.
How many fish can I put in there?
It depends on the type of fish.
Well, you already know what type of fish.
Yeah. So I looked it up, and the frogs that you wanted, you should have at least 2. So we got 2 of the frogs. So you wanted a betta fish. And you could do like 12 green neons. So let's see. So we turn it on to white. You see how bright it is? But you can always...
You can also see how dirty the tank is.
Yeah, it needs to be wiped
That's
off.
why it has to be rinsed out, I'm sure.
So if it's too bright for you, I recommend having it on the brightest setting most of the time, at least for while the plants get established, because they do need light. My favorite part, though. First, I'll show you this. There we go.
Oh, it does a gradual change.
Yep, it does a gradual change. This one is supposed to look like a cloudy night. It takes a little bit, but clouds will pass by and it'll get a little dim for a little bit.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But my favorite, lightning.
Oh.
It has a lightning setting.
Do it again.
It should still be going. It'll have gaps, like it's random. There we go.
Oop, I accidentally was not on it. Do it one more time.
It's still going. You don't have to press the button every time. It'll have port sections where it's blue.
Lightning. How cool is that? Okay.
Yep. So it's got wide range. I don't know if it's on camera. A wide range of different colors and
You're perfect.
things like that.
Okay.
But white is probably what it's gonna be at most of the time. The only problem is you gotta hit it from the right angle. You see that little bump on top of the tank bomb? You might not be able from where you are.
Mm-mm.
There's a little tiny bump on the back of the tank. That's where you have to point it. Otherwise it won't do nothing. Yeah. Magical remote. I'm gonna check the tracking for that gravel real fast. And I need it all over the place.
Very, very cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, little crown. That's gonna be happening to you a lot from now on. Okay, so this is the main part of the filtration. Sponge is one of the best biological filtration, which is the main thing you're worried about is the biological. It's what makes the tank safe. It has a nice big sponge that goes in that middle compartment. This is going to be the activated carbon, which is literally just charcoal, basically. You rinse it under water to get rid of all the dust, and this removes any of the teeny tiny little impurities, like tannins that color the water, like think like tea or coffee.
I don't plan on putting any coffee in there.
Good. Well, that's a bad idea.
Good.
Tannins are also produced by wood, is why I say tannins. And then this is more biological media. These are called ceramic biorings. These ones you also give a good rinse to get rid of all the dust. But these have millions of tiny little pores in them that provides a lot of places for the bacteria to grow. They do eventually get clogged, which is why it's good you have the sponge. Because the sponge, if it gets clogged, you can just squeeze it out in dirty tank water and get rid of all the clogged stuff, and the bacteria is still there. This stuff you do the same thing too, but eventually it will stop being useful because all the holes will get clogged up and it's too small to fix. So with the heater, I'm half paranoid that it won't fit because it's a very large heater, especially for a 15-gallon tank. But this tank is great because with the all-in-one design, not only is there more filtration, but you can also hide the heater. And then just like that, your display tank is clear. And of course it does come with instructions, which I don't need. Always helpful though. I think other than that,
You want to set that crown on the shelf on top of that cup so it doesn't get broken? Okay, just set it on the dresser.
okay.
I just don't want it broken.
Yeah. So I think we're going to stop and rinse the tank out, and then we'll be back.
Alright guys, we're going to rinse this out real quick. We just have it sitting on my shower chair. It's nice to have that handheld shower thing to rinse it out with.
Mm-hmm. So just rinsing off any dust that came off in the factory or during shipping or anything like that. And there's generally not going to be any chemicals or anything, but it also makes me more comfortable about chemicals poisoning fish, and that's just a sad time for everybody.
Can you grab my cloth out of the bottom of the tub? I don't want it all gross. I need to replace it anyway, but...
You can also get a good look at the filter. That's about all it needs for rinsing, honestly. But you can see the back. Got those compartments. There's a grate here. Those work to direct the water flow and recording?
Yep.
Okay. So we got it set on the mat, all rinsed and everything. And that mat's super important. If you buy one of these tanks or any tank that includes the mat, if you don't use it, there's a chance the tank could just crack. Because this tank is sitting on the glass, which means any tiny bump is a bump that's putting pressure on that spot. When you have a rimmed tank, that plastic rim around it supports the whole thing. So just make sure you use those. If you buy a tank without a plastic rim, you're probably going to need one.
It seemed like it was just a really thin piece of foam. That's all it was.
It's basically is. They can go ahead and buy like that kind of foam. I don't know how to describe it, but if you can use any foam like that. So I'm just dropping the heater into the back of the tank. Probably should have flipped the camera and flipped the tank around to do this, but it took me like 30 seconds to get it
Okay,
around.
pause 1 sec.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. So yeah, just sticking in there. Generally, you want the heater down as low as possible because if the heater is exposed to the air, it'll be a sudden drop in temperature. And heaters, this one's metal, so it's not as big a deal, but the glass ones can shatter if they're exposed to the air for too long. I just remembered I need to rinse these, so I'm gonna go do that real fast. Okay, so we're now gonna sift the dirt. It's not 100% necessary, but it removes all like the sticks and any like big pieces that can poke through the gravel. We're just gonna sift a little bit on video, and then I'm gonna do the rest off camera. It's gonna be the same thing for all of it. We're vacuuming after, so I don't have to. I'm gonna avoid getting it on the ground on the carpet, but I'm not gonna freak out if that happens. Mom might though. It's her room. There we go.
You almost need a cup or something. There's a mug right there.
Okay. So dirt, like I said, the reason why I use dirt is because it has a lot of nutrients in it for the plants. Because some plants feed through their leaves from the water directly. It's not going to shaking. And some plants eat through their roots, like most land plants we know of. The reason why, one of the downsides of using dirt is that if you're not super experienced, there's a chance that you could kick the dirt up, and it won't do anything bad to your fish, but it can cause algae blooms. It looks really bad. The holes in this are a little too fine. But if you don't want to use dirt, you can still use a fine gravel or a sand or something like that. You just want to buy something called root tabs, which are just little things of fertilizer that will feed your plant roots. Or you can buy a plant substrate, but I find those are more difficult than root tabs. I'm going to be the one mostly doing the care for this tank, so we're doing a little bit more of an advanced method. But if y'all wanted to try doing a planted tank, but you don't want to have to worry about accidentally turning it black from all the dirt, just use root tabs. Or you can go to Walmart, the garden section. They have something called Osmocote. It's just a garden fertilizer. It's like $5 for a big old bottle. You only need a few tablespoons for a whole tank. But that stuff is basically just what's in root tabs, but cheaper. Everything fish and fish related is going to be way more expensive. It's going to take me a hot minute. Yeah, so a lot of these, especially the organic soils, have sticks and leaves and stuff in it. It's dirt, and that stuff helps with drainage for normal plants. But I find it can stick out from underneath the sand and look bad. You could definitely still use the leftovers for like houseplant or something. It's not super important what type of soil you use as long as it's organic. So you can use potting soil, topsoil, A lot of people use organic Miracle-Gro. I find that Miracle-Gro has a really it has a lot of more branches than I like. This one's pretty fine. Actually, it's not too bad. I need somewhere to put the leftovers.
Dump them in the other lid.
This part is kind of a pain, but we will probably also bake the soil just to sterilize it. I found when I've done dirted tanks in the past where I didn't rinse or
Bake.
bake the substrate, I got caddisfly larvae. I just got dirt everywhere. I got caddisfly larvae, which are a tiny little bug that wrap themselves in leaves and live in your tank. Which, I mean, they don't hurt anything, but I didn't like it. Yeah, so you run the risk of bugs. There can be bad bacteria in the dirt. That's the first little bit done.
We'll see you guys back here in a few minutes with the finished sifting. Hey guys, this is where we're at right now. We've got all that sifted, and that's all the junk that came out of it.
Yep, this is all bark and a little bit of moss. And I just spilled it. I've been making a mess everywhere today.
Yes, she has.
Yep. So it's all nice and fine. So there's probably a couple little tiny twigs in here that made it through the sifter, but that's not going to cause any issues under the gravel or anything. So what we need to do is we're actually going to bake this to remove all the. I got the hiccups.
How long do we bake it for?
Probably about 30 minutes at 300 degrees or so.
Okay.
Does that sound too high? What you made
Nope.
a face.
I didn't make a face.
You look disappointed in me.
No, I'm not disappointed in you.
So
I'm very grateful for my tank. Thank you. I love to see you in your element.
Yes. I'm just having fun touching the dirt right now. Yeah, so we're gonna bake it. I'm considering possibly rinsing it first. That's not a necessary step, but I don't think I'm gonna do it. That's just extra work for me.
Won't most of it just dissolve and go down the drain?
Sort of. It doesn't really dissolve. What'll happen is some of it will float and some of it will sink. But what it does, the main reason why people do it is so that if it does leach, like if it does form a leak through the gravel, it won't stain your water, is why people do it. Some people also do it until nothing floats, which means even if it was exposed again, it would just stay at the bottom. You can just cover it back up without it floating up. But it's not really necessary. I tend to put a thick cap on it, and since I got gravel instead of sand this time, we can do an even thicker cap. Because normally sand, if you bury it too thick, like if you have too thick of a layer, it can actually form bubbles that smell really bad. They say those are toxic, but I found that they don't really dissolve into the water at all, so it doesn't hurt the fish or anything. It just smells bad. If it did dissolve into the water, it probably would be toxic, but that's nearly impossible to have happen. But yeah. And this is the size and shape of the tank.
Yeah, so we know we got enough dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the
leftovers
that we can maybe plant some plants in or something if I ever get a green thumb.
Yeah, I'm going to be buying some houseplants for my room at some point. As soon as I can afford them. Which feels like never. But as soon as I can afford houseplants, I'm going to have a lot of houseplants in my room. So I have dirt for that now. Probably
Big difference between those two piles of dirt, though, when you sift it and when you don't.
Oh yeah, and you can see like there's sticks. Like this could stick up and then go through the gravel. It's not gonna look neat. And it also, this stuff also tends to form air pockets because something will get stuck under like a piece of mulch, a little bit of air.
Alrighty, let's go bake this dirt.
Yes. Hello. Don't forget, Mom, you're going to be in the camera. You're going to be in the shot because you're standing behind me. So we're just going to show you how to rinse the gravel. Well, this stuff, it's called Peace River sand. It's actually a lot finer than I was expecting, which is a good thing. The finer it is, the easier it is for the plants to grip. But if you go too fine, it'll actually prevent oxygen from getting down into the substrate, and that can cause bubbles and gross stuff to happen. And you just want a strainer. With this stuff, you definitely need something fine mesh. If you don't have a fine mesh strainer, but you decide to go with something like this, you can always use a bucket and just fill the bucket. So, yep, we're just getting the dirt out. See, there's already a whole bunch at the bottom of the sink. There's a decent chance you probably won't get it all out. When you fill up the tank, you want to do it nice and slow. I'll show you when you do go to fill it up. This is also working to get the really fine particles out. Some people want those. Sometimes I do too, but right now I don't. It's a good thing those are going away. You can do more at once than I am usually doing this now because it's easier to shake. Some people don't, with regular, like, large grain gravel like you normally buy at a pet store, I definitely say you would need to rinse it, because it gets a lot more dust from the factory. This stuff is going to be mostly dirt that I'm rinsing out, which, if you do get it into your water when you fill up the tank, it'll just get sucked out by the filter, or get filtered out by the filters. This part takes a while. Like doing it all takes a while. Normally I set up tanks of sand, but since, like I said, sand can cause those pockets of air, I'm doing this stuff, which it's called sand online. It's called Peace River sand, so I guess maybe it is sand. It's just really, really coarse. See how coarse that is? It's basically a really fine gravel or a really coarse sand. But I really like the color. I don't like the look of gravel either. I think the pieces are too big. It doesn't look as natural to me. Unless you're doing like a river tank where you're going to have a look that's like where you would see that kind of rock. Otherwise, mostly you're going to see a lot of sand. Yeah, some gravel mixed in, but mostly sand in the wild. If y'all do this and you decide you like the gravel, the bigger or colored gravel more, it doesn't hurt nothing. I just don't like the way it looks as much. But yeah, so that's the sand or gravel, whatever you want to call it, all mixed up. This stuff also weirdly came with sticks. If you do buy this stuff, again, Peace River sand, you can buy it on Amazon. You want to make sure to get all those sticks out because those are going to float when you fill up the tank and it's not going to be fun. Yeah, that's it for the gravel.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back. We're going to finally put the substrate into the tank. Since it's a dirty tank again, it's kind of important that it doesn't get into the water column because it'll just float right up to the surface, make everything really gross. I have all of the sifted dirt here. Most of the gravel's in this bag, and there's some still in the strainer. You need a little less gravel or sand when you're setting up a dirter tank than if you set up a regular, just only gravel tank. And that's because you're gonna have the dirt to build up height with. I've got about 10 pounds in there, which I'm sure should be more than enough. So, but what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the gravel or sand or whatever, I'm just gonna call it gravel, and I'm putting it around the edges. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna make it so that you can't see the dirt underneath. It's just an aesthetic choice. It's not necessary, if it seems like too much work. But you just take the gravel or sand or whatever, push it up around the edges. It creates a little like retaining wall to hide it all. So it looks like it's the sand all the way through. You don't need to worry about doing it to the back because no one's going to see the back. I missed a little stick. You're going to want about 3/4 of an inch to an inch of the dirt. So you're gonna shoot for about that high with the gravel. You're gonna add more gravel on top so that it covers the dirt, of course. So that's about good. I might add a little bit more in a bit, but that's about good for the gravel to start. I'm gonna take some dirt. And I did end up baking the dirt off camera, just like we said we would with the instructions. The downside of doing that is while it makes everything nice and clean, or sterile, because it's dirt, can't really be clean for the fish, it does dry it out like crazy. You need to be aware that it's going to be extra aerated and fluffy. I don't know why that's leaf. And you're just adding it into the little cavity you made. Having it fill up the space. So the Fluval, I forgot that the Fluval Flex 15 has an overflow up here. And it also has one down here in case this one gets clogged. So I'm being careful not to build the dirt up to that level because otherwise it can get sucked in. It can make the tank gross, just like if it had been exposed. I'm not doing a super deep bed here, so it's not a problem. I think it honestly might just be uncovered. But if you do end up building it up high enough that it's going to reach that, you're going to want to cover it with the gravel instead of the dirt, or even just like make it lower around that area and just cover it up with decor so people can't tell. I'm going to rinse this real fast because I'm dumb and used it for dirt after it was wet. So now if I use it for the rest of the gravel, I'm just gonna rinse this real fast. Almost forgot. What we're gonna do now is take a spray bottle, just full of tap water, and I might just take the lid off and pour it, but you want to drench the dirt because if it's, like I said, it's super dry, and if you put the gravel or sand on top, and there's a chance that air will get trapped in there, which can, like I said, cause those gross bubbles. Something called anaerobic bacteria grows when there's no oxygen. And the anaerobic bacteria actually, instead of removing ammonia, which is why we need a filter, it'll actually make ammonia. It'll take the nitrates and turn it into ammonia. Which is why we want to avoid air bubbles, because then the bacteria will start to grow, it'll eat all the air, and then it'll turn anaerobic. We add the dirt in dry because it's easier to work with dry. I just pour a little bit in there. If you wanted to wet it first and get it soaking wet before you add it in, you can do that. But you're gonna get mud all over your hands and it's gonna get really gross. Be mindful that if you do have a dirty tank like this, you can't gravel vac like they normally tell you with the fish tank. Because when you gravel vac, you stick the hose under the gravel and it sucks up anything underneath. It'll suck up all the dirt. That's actually perfectly fine because the plant, since it's a planted tank, will actually eat that stuff and it's good for it. It's free fertilizer. So it's pretty drenched. I can see moisture on top of the soil.
Let me come over there and get a close up before you move on.
See, some sticks made it through a sifting, but that's not a big deal. As long as most of them are gone and there's none sticking up and... See, yeah, you can't see any of it from the front, especially when I add more on top.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to take more of the gravel, and this is when we're going to use most of it, and we're going to just put it on top.
How do you plant the flower or the plants?
So we're going to plant them through the gravel into the dirt. So we're going to do it before we fill up the tank. We're going to add all the plants in and then fill it up.
Won't the gravel get mixed in with the dirt?
It's okay if it gets mixed in a little bit. What'll mostly happen is since we're only pushing down, the gravel will go into the dirt, but no dirt will come up into the gravel. So it's fine. The gravel's not going to hurt the dirt. We're just worried about the dirt getting up to the surface. As long as that surface is clean, we're fine. I will say though that if you try to add plants or pull up plants after the tank is full, it can cause a mess. If the dirt does get exposed, it's not a huge deal. Like I said, there'll be an algae bloom. It's just when you get a whole bunch of algae really fast because of excess nutrients. And it'll leave dirt all over your tank that you have to clean up, which is a pain. But it's not...
Are Plecostomuses good for this kind of a...
So most Plecostomus get pretty large. They actually get like 3 feet long. There's a few that stay smaller, but I worry about them in a dirted tank because they like to dig, which in a dirted tank can cause issues. There are, if you wanted an algae-eating fish, in case there is an algae bloom, you can do like Otosynculus, which are basically mini plecos, like they're tiny plecos that only get like an inch long. They need to be in groups, but they're very small, very peaceful. They don't dig or anything. I usually find the way I take care of my tanks, I don't ever get algae. Or if I do, it's only when the tank's new. The main things that cause an algae bloom or algae in general is going to be too much light, too many nutrients. Those 2 things, too much light and too many nutrients. So if you limit your light, you can have more fish without worrying about algae. You still need to worry about, so if you had a tank that was in the darkness all the time, no algae would grow because algae needs light to grow. If you had a tank that had sunlight, strength light 24/7 but had no fish or nothing in it to cause nutrients, chances are it won't grow algae, or it will for a short time and then stop. because they eat all the nutrients that were naturally in your tap water. All of my tanks that I keep have a lot of plants in them, and I put my lights on timers. So my lights are on for about 8 hours a day max instead of from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. And since those plants are there to eat the nutrients that will compete the algae, there's no food for them. There's not enough light, and they can't grow. The main reason why people get algae is because they don't clean their tanks often enough, they don't have live plants, and they don't put their lights on a timer. Which is fair enough. Some people are overwhelmed by the idea of live plants. I find they're a lot easier than people give them credit for. But some people just don't want it. They think that it makes it dirtier, which in a way it does, but not really. I'm just giving it a little bit of a slope now, which makes the tank look deeper. And adds more like perspective, like it feels like you're looking into a larger space than you actually are. But yeah, most people have their tank lights on from when they wake up to when they go to sleep, even without plants that don't. So nothing in there needs light. Fish do fine on ambient lighting, because when it's light in your room, they can see that and they know it's daytime, so their sleep doesn't get messed up. But put the whole batting method in there. Yeah, so timers are great. They're only a few bucks, like maybe $4 or $5 at Home Depot, just a socket timer. If you have a Google Home or an Alexa or any of those smart assistants, you can buy plugs that hook up to that, and you can hook your lights up to that, and it'll automatically do it through your Alexa. Or you can tell her to turn it on or turn it off whenever you want. Or you can just turn it off whenever you feel like it, turn it on, as long as it's not on for too long. We're probably going to do water changes on this tank every week, at least at first. Since this tank is dirted, there's actually, and this is going to happen in non-dirted tanks too if they're maintained right, but you can set up a tank so that, I'm going to do corner, so that you don't need to do water changes except for maybe like once a year. The plants will actually eat nitrates, which is the end of the nitrogen cycle, which is what the filter does. So the filter, like I said, removes ammonia and makes it into something safer, but still you need to remove it with water changes. But plants can actually eat that stuff. So if you have plants, they will clean your water for you, which you need a lot of them to actually do that properly. But this tank will probably have enough plants to do that, so that eventually, as the tank gets properly established and all that, we won't need water changes, except for, like I said, once every 6 months we'll do like a 50% water change to remineralize it. But that's the sort of thing you have to do with testing the water. It's not something you can just decide, if that makes any sense. Like, you can't just guess. I'm just checking the depth to make sure it's not. Yeah, so it's up to my second knuckle before I hit dirt, so that's pretty good. I just covered that up. I'm avoiding that intake. I wasn't thinking about that when I bought this tank, so it's not the most ideal for a dirted tank. It should be fine. Most of it's going to go through here. But yeah, I think that's the substrate in.
So now what?
So now we're waiting for the decorations. They're not really called decorations when you have planted tanks. They're called the hardscape. So the hardscape, I got some cerulean stone, which is a really pretty dark gray or black stone that has white veining in it. I love it. I kind of regret getting it because I forgot that the The sand I got is light brown, so it might look a little wacky for a little while. But eventually we'll have so many plants you can't see it. Then we also got something called spiderwood, which is actually I want to say it's a magnolia roots, some kind of ornamental flowering bush. The roots of it. It's got kind of like crazy shapes to it. I got 3 pieces of those, probably more than we need, but more is always better than not enough. And then the plants are coming with the wood. So when the rocks should come first, then the plants are going to come, and the wood are going to come with the plants. I ordered a lot of plants, way more than we're probably going to be able to fit in here. And we're probably going to have to remove plants as the tank matures, but that's okay. I have buckets I can put them in. I have places to put plants. And then once we get the plants in, we can fill the tank up and then let it cycle, and then a week later we can add fish. And the tank will be set up.
Alright guys, this is part 1 of setup of the fish tank.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get the rest of the stuff, then we'll do part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Bye.